Hi, I'm Alice.
And I'm Sophie.
And we are co-directors of The Joyful.
And today we're going to be talking about one of our favourite topics, which is imposter syndrome. We've done a video about imposter syndrome before, but the kind of change that we've experienced since that video about a year ago has been pretty mind-blowing, in the sense that we came to that video and talked about our experience of imposter syndrome when there was just the two of us. Our business was doing pretty well, but it was still just the two of us. And now there are 7 of us, and we're working on some of the most incredible campaigns with some of the most incredible businesses that are global, having global impact. And whoa, mama, if we thought we knew about imposter syndrome a year ago, well, so that's what we're here today, is to talk about imposter syndrome in the context of growth. Because the thing that's so interesting about the phenomenon of imposter syndrome, which for those of you who don't know, is when your brain tells you that you aren't good enough, or that you are an imposter in some way, or that some people are going to find out that you're just faking it the whole time. That voice gets louder the more successful that you become. So it really is the most bizarre psychological phenomenon, because there's no grounding to the progress of actual situation to the voice in the head that says, who the hell do you think you are? So, Alice, what has been your experience of imposter syndrome over the last year?
I think it's really spot on what you've said about it just getting worse. Like, we're really sorry if you think that, if you're watching this and you think that you are going to reach a point where your imposter syndrome just magically goes away and you feel comfortable in what you're doing. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but actually, the more successful you get, like, the worse it gets. I think you just learn to manage it. And I think certainly for me, I've done a lot of work around this in terms of speaking to coaches, reading books. And for me, it's been about getting to a point where I can sort of say, yes, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge that this voice is here. Thank you for your input. I'm just going to keep on doing as I'm doing. And I had a really interesting conversation with someone recently, talking about what's happened over the course of the year, and with the business, and, all of the various things that, like, even like before The Joyful, I've kind of tried my hand at over the years. And this person said to me, like, well, how do you make the fear go away? And I was like, you don't, you just do it anyway. One of the biggest cliches out there, feel the fear and do it anyway. Like, it's completely true. You just have to act in the face of fear to move forward. And that's really hard.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a kind of I guess you could call it a parable. I'm not sure whether that's the right word for Buddhism, but Buddha talks about, like, how to make friends with fear. And it's like Buddha says, don't fight fear. Fear's not there to be your enemy. He's there, she's there, it's there to keep you safe. It's there to to try to guide you. It's literally, the limbic system is our most ancient primal protection system, and it wants to be listened to because it's there for a purpose. It just so happens that the purpose it's there for isn't necessarily applicable to the modern day world, but it doesn't know that, bless it. Like, so Buddha says, and this is exactly what you're saying, really, Alice, is like, sit with it, ask it what it wants, listen to what it's trying to tell you, make friends with it, and then say, thank you, but this is I'm going to do this anyway. Like,
Yeah.
and then it'll be so much more quiet, because when you fight against it, it just shouts even louder.
Yeah. And I think it's also worth noting that, like, your brain, your beautiful, unevolved brain that is still the same as it was tens of thousands of years ago, trying to cope in this world, doesn't have the ability to distinguish between real threat and imagined threat. So when you create these futures, which are a projection of your own anxiety and your own fear, your brain treats that as that's already happening and responds, and you have the physiological response. And I think so much of that is at play in imposter syndrome. Certainly for me, like, my imposter syndrome takes the form of, I project myself into the situation and I see everything going wrong, and I tell myself that it's all gone wrong because I have no idea what I'm doing and I have no right to be there. And then my body reacts and goes, oh my God, there's no way I can do this. And then I just invent all of the reasons, perfectly valid, rational reasons to my brain why I'm not going to take action and I'm not going to do the thing until I've got this, and this. But all of that is a response to something completely imaginary that has not happened and probably won't happen.
Yeah, it's interesting because you might be watching this and thinking like, oh, I'm not so sure that I've experienced that. But if you've ever experienced like extreme procrastination, and it doesn't always show up in the same way for everybody. It doesn't always show up as that loud voice in your head that says like, who do you think you are? It can show up as, something that you really, really burningly want to do, yet haven't managed to find the time to do it. Or, something that you really, really, really want to try, but haven't found the money or the time or, the space or whatever. There's so many excuses. The brain is like super clever and comes up with all kinds of things, again, to keep us safe, to stop us from going down this unknown road that it doesn't have a collection in its library of memories to source from, to be able to detect the danger. So therefore it just projects all of the danger that has been in the past down that unknown road.
Yeah.
And it is, for me, mainly, I think it shows up as procrastination. Like, I'll be really excited about something, and yet you can ask me like a month later, like, have you done it? And I'll be like, it's on my list.
And it's really interesting. It reminds me of a conversation we had the other week around the difference between perfectionism and idealism. And
yeah, that was a Matthew Bellringer clanger, which was, thank you, Matthew, very, very helpful.
Matthew Bellringer clanger. That's a new trademark that. But yeah, I can't. You might have to say this for me because I can't remember what it was. But you were saying like perfectionism is about kind of the detail, and is kind of like the stumbling block because you have to get it right. Whereas idealism is what stops you taking action in the first place because you think it has to have this perfect outcome.
Yeah, exactly that. Or even more than that, it's the inaction caused by the kind of real, like, this idealistic way of like, oh, I really, really, really believe this to happen. But then there'll be another idea that comes in and another idea that comes in. And it's like 5 bazillion ideas, and like all of them kind of either half started or not started at all, because it all just ends up feeling really overwhelming. So it's just like, meh. Whereas perfectionism is that kind of like almost tunnel vision on the outcome of something that needs to be a certain way, so it never gets finished because it's never quite good enough. But they are 2 sides of exactly the same coin, and I think they do come from this fire of kind of imposter syndrome, fear of the unknown, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think, like idealism being nothing gets started, perfectionism being nothing gets finished, and I think it's really interesting at like how, like, certainly from my experience, how that intersects with my imposter syndrome, because I think I fear the kind of outcome of things not being perfect. And I don't know if I so much do now. I'm speaking kind of, you know, from a sense of the past, but I certainly know that like I've given up before I've started, because I've thought, well, first of all, I don't have a right to do this. I don't there are so many people out there that know more than me, and I'm scared that to put myself out there is going to bring back criticism, and also I'm scared it's just not going to be as good, and it's not going to be the way that I want it, and then I'm going to be disappointed, and oh my god, now I'm in this state of like I can't do it right and I don't deserve any of it, and then I just stop.
Yeah, I think both you and I have expressed before like how we don't really like to do anything unless we're really good at it the first time round. which is not the way to expand one's skill sets.
And it's really interesting. Like I've picked up a couple of like hobbies during lockdown. I've started making jewelry, and I've started learning German. Not with any degree of real application, just on Duolingo. Sorry, my budgie is screaming very loudly, if you can hear that. He wants to join the conversation. And like, you know, learning something, like learning a new skill and it's always was something I was doing privately, because I was like, I don't want to show anyone, like I don't want to actually speak German to anyone. Like I'm learning it because I sound terrible and I can't hold a conversation. But you know, I walk around the house to myself, and I you know, and I point at things and I say the German word for them when I know what they are, and like, you know, try and ask in real like pidgin German for things. And I can see myself getting better. And it's such a paradox, because I definitely have that sense of like, I find it very difficult to be patient if I'm not very good at something. And yet also the reward and sense of satisfaction I get from learning something new is so huge and so self-satisfying that I don't know why I don't do it in the first place.
Yeah, well, this is it. And I think it really does take that sense of self-awareness to be able to realize how I think all of us in some way or another will understand the experience of self-sabotage. And that essentially is what it is. It's like the kind of fear response stops us from ever starting something in the first place. Or like, you know, for me in the past, it's made me quit a lot of things that I look back on and I'm like, man, I could have been really good at that, and that. And as an adult, I really wish that I was, but I just gave it up because it was too frustrating. And I felt, and for me, it was like a real shame response, because again, we live in a society that tells us things should be a certain way, and we should be striving for this kind of almost, well, not even almost, actually impossible standards of excellence and perfection that just, actually, when you think about them, it's just quite gross that this is what we teach our children from such a young age.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's like we lose the joy of the process. We lose the joy of the falling over and the getting back up and the experimentation and the curiosity and all of these things that are actually so wonderful when you take them for what they are.
Yeah.
Because we're only thinking about the outcome. We're only thinking about what we're trying to do, and if that's not good enough, then we're not good enough somehow. And for me, that really occurs as a proper shame response, which my shame response goes something like this, like, I don't even care anyway, I don't even like it.
and what, you know, what I think is really interesting is, you know, thinking about that in the context of our business, there's been so much we've wanted to do that we put off for so long because we didn't have it perfect, or we didn't have the total vision of how it's going to go. And yet every time we've done something without knowing how it's going to go, the process of learning has been so enriching and so rewarding and so useful to us. And then we've got a product, and then we can go, you know what, we're going to do this again, but we're going to change this and this, and it's going to be even better. And actually there's no way there is no way you can get to a perfect finished product without having a bunch of imperfect ones along the way.
Yeah, so true. And there's so many examples of that with every single incredible breakthrough has come with so much failure. Like, actually, just as a kind of my favorite example of that is Einstein was like absolutely shamed and shunned internationally. Like, people were just like, you're embarrassing. Like, it was like, you're an embarrassment to the progress of science. That's Einstein, who now we're just like, oh my God, for me, for many reasons, I think he's absolutely incredible. And he had to go through that process of being publicly shamed
Mm-hmm.
to have the impact that he's had.
Yeah.
Like, and there's so many examples of it, but for me, he's like, everybody knows Einstein's like a badass. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. If you went through that, then who am I to say that I don't also have to go through some kind of baptism of fire if it's really, really worth it to me?
Yeah, completely. And you know, I think for me, what I'd really like to leave you with, if you've watched this video, is like, you know, give it a go, try. It doesn't have to be perfect. You might think that all of these people are going to judge you, that you don't deserve it, that you're going to be critiqued, and you might be, but at the end of the day, you having a go and a try is, no matter the outcome, is going to be so enriching, and you're going to learn so much. And even if you do get criticism or feedback that, you know, isn't necessarily what you wanted to hear, use it, and then try again. And I think there are, you know, there are so few people out there in the world that are going to judge you for you know, for putting yourself out there. I think the kind of most common outcome is people are just going to be in real admiration of your bravery for having a go, no matter what the finished product looks like or the outcome is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really inspiring to watch somebody bring passion and enthusiasm and curiosity to something. Like, that's the thing that really inspires rather than necessarily the outcome.
Yeah. And I think that's the perfect note to leave you on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you so much for watching, and we will be back with our videos more regularly now, which is very exciting.
And we'll see you next
Have a wonderful rest of your day.